At first, yesterday, I thought nothing could compare with Pennsylvania's new voter ID law. Civil rights group there are arguing the law discriminates against older and minority voters. And in some cases, they have a real point. But it's hard for me to believe that most of any minority and most older people don't have the wherewithal to get a state ID that can be shown at the polls. You have to have an ID for almost anything else these days. What shocked me, though, was that the law was passed in the first place and then upheld yesterday in a court of law without any evidence, and we're talking not a scintilla, that any election fraud ever took place in Pennsylvania. It takes real chutzpah to get a law passed to stamp out a problem for which there is no evidence that it even exists. But we do have evidence of voter fraud in Michigan, don't we? Thanks to Schmidt and Bolger, both of whom ought to be tossed out in their ears on November 6th. One can only hope. Well, last week we heard Schmidt say he was going to have to try a little harder to explain himself. I still wonder what that means, though. He can't say he didn't try to rig an election by demonstrating his utter lack of respect for our electoral system and his constituency. But we hadn't heard much from his partner in fraud, Speaker Jase Bolger, until yesterday. Now, for the record, chutzpah is a Yiddish word for unbridled temerity or effrontery, as in the young man accused of murdering his parents begged the court for mercy because he no longer had a mother and father. So after the Michigan House passed its election bill yesterday, a spokesman said, quoting now, "The whole elections process in Michigan has come under scrutiny lately, and many people, me included, have suggested that we need higher standards. Elections need to focus on voters, not opposition between parties." Well, slap my face. Isn't that something? Turns out the spokesman is none other than Speaker Bolger, the man who caused this problem in the first place. Not that you'd know from him, but he is the man who, by his own actions, made it clear that, yes, indeed, higher standards are needed. And what do you know? He now thinks voters are more important than parties. Where was this guy a few months ago when he was trying to stiff the system? Oh, that's right. He got caught. In the future, if someone needs a definition of chutzpah, you can point the finger at Jase Bolger, the jovial fraud fighter from Marshall, Michigan. In this corner, I'm Tom Van Howe.